What is up, and welcome into the Easy Smoke and the GM podcast. I'm your host, Ezra McCann, and I'm joined, as always, by my outstanding co-host. He's a Chicago Public League legend. He's a Simeon legend. He's a Grambling State legend. He played second base for the Tigers back in the day. He was all SWAC. He is none other than Brandon Williams, a.k.a. Coach Smoke. We've got our NFL draft analyst, enthusiast, expert, whatever you want to call him, Glenn Morgan, our GM, and we've got a special guest today. My man Ken Davis, formerly of the Undercenter podcast. He is here to join us to talk some Bears, so we're glad to have him. Gentlemen, what is going on? How you guys doing, man?
Yeah. And then we have basketball season to look forward to, which is right before baseball season look forward to. So
You're painting a really depressing picture here right now. Thank you very much, Glenn.
So Happy New Year. Yeah. Same old shit.
Happy New Year, right.
Ken, what's going on, man? All right.
I'm good, man. I appreciate you all. Happy New Year's to you, gentlemen, and everybody that's watching or listening. Appreciate you guys bringing me on. I'm not going into all that stuff that Glenn said because I'm not giving them my time because they don't want to give me anything back. I don't play those games. If you say screw me, it's back at you. I don't have to. It doesn't have to be visceral, but yo, if you're not trying to do right by me, there's no reason for me to consistently do right by you.
Words to live by.
I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing that went right.
What's that?
Was the Derrick Rose weekend.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, I will say one thing that did go right in Chicago for the first time in a while was Derrick Rose weekend.
There's a but on that, and I hate to be like that person. I don't really, in all fairness, and it's messed up. It's messed up because the Bulls did a lot to harm Derrick Rose too. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go back to so anybody that's maybe too young right now that doesn't know, when Derrick Rose injured himself, and anybody, this is a funny thing just for a history lesson, because I know kids nowadays who have the internet at their fingertips but don't want to go look at history. Derrick Rose would throw his body, and I don't mean it's a negative sense, in manners that was reckless, but I don't mean it, again, negative. That's just how hard he played. So if you knew sports, you was like, this is going to come down. And Tibbs played him, and Tibbs still to this day was like, he shouldn't have. Tibbs played him in a playoff game. The Bulls had won the first game against the 76ers. And Derrick had already been injured, and Derrick came back and blew his knee out. And the thing was, and one of my best friends at the time that we used to always say, and I don't think a lot of people, like, look at Russell Westbrook, for instance, just for history lesson. This is my opinion. This is not fact. And I'm not dissing Russell Westbrook. He's like a Corvette American supercar. Derrick Rose was a Ferrari, and this was like a hand-built. And what I mean by that is, like, some things when you crash them, they are not the same. Like some things are at such a level that when it's built, with a Corvette, they got a lot of parts. Even with, and I mean, Corvettes are nice now. They are supercars. If anybody that's not a car person, they are on the same level as a lot of different things. Because you look at and Russ didn't have the ACL, but he had meniscus. He had injuries. And look at the triple-double that Russ had with Joker like 2 or 3 days ago. You still see that. But with Derrick being, and it's not a knock on Russ, a little bit more special than what Russ was, and had a lot more load bearing because he carried the team. And at that point, Russ had 2 other MVPs, and we didn't know they were MVPs on his roster, that there was a lot on Derrick. But if you never saw Derrick Rose play, there's still nobody exactly like him. Ja's close. Ja is really close, but he's still not Derrick. But the point, getting back all the way. So the Bulls in the media at the time, through whatever media outlet you were listening to, would give information out saying that Derrick should be back, but Derrick doesn't want to come back. And basically that perhaps, and I'm inferring this because I wasn't in it, but he didn't know what they knew about recovery. And in all fairness, Derrick was never the same player. So in all fairness, in hindsight being 2020, he did know that he was not the same guy whatsoever. And even if you say, well, work hard, because I was like, you got to, I don't know about then, but we do know he did train. He said to himself that I had to train different. He never had the same explosion. Some of the quickness was still there, but he never had quickness. And even in quickness is in a phone booth, it's not the same as lateral, not lateral, but distance sometimes as far as that. So where Derek lost a lot due to his injury, and nowadays you can come back from injuries, but sometimes a player either is so special that it's just not the same. So again, it's great that the Bulls did that. I guess being I don't want to say contrarian, but when you look at the fact that how long could they live off of the championships, I won't say you smoke because you're so youthful and young, but at least Glenn, I'm not gonna diss Ezra because I saw Michael Jordan what the Bulls did, and Jordan wasn't coming because the Bulls won 6 titles.
Hey! I saw him too. I know I was young, but I saw him too. Listen. My auntie was a lover bull for the first 3. My mom's twin sister. So, yeah. Just.
I had a cousin. So that's different. I had a cousin that moved from Atlanta up here and had Cliff Levingston, like had several Bulls players calling our house at the time. So that's a whole nother story for this show. Anyway, my main point was,
I don't know if y'all can see that.
Oh wow, yeah.
Can we?
That's a picture right there.
You see that?
You can't see that?
Okay, me, the little guy.
MJ. I see a little smoke right there. I see him.
She was getting it. No disrespect. But no, again, this is just to end it so we can get back to what we're talking about. I apologize. I don't mean to take over the opening of y'all.
No, you're all good, man.
But it's just the feeling that organization or ownership that controls, I think we're all Southside guys, controls so much of our life when it comes to the Bulls and the Sox. I was on GM Sports, and I'm not saying it just because this past Monday, but Jared, when I was leaving, was like, "Man, I should root for the Sox," and I'm like, "You don't want to," and I don't like saying that. No, because it's not cool. It's not cool. Like I shouldn't say that to somebody. I should be like, "Nah, we're this," because that's one of the reasons I love the Sox. Being a kid that I lived all over the South Side, but particularly I lived in the PCs. I lived in the projects. I had a cousin that he lived right in the projects, was around the White Sox, so I would be there as a little kid growing up. That it just meant something more to me. But when it feels like ownership doesn't care about, and I understand you own it, but you still have to care about your constituencies or the fan base, and it doesn't feel like that. That's where, and what you were still right, Smoke. It's props to Derrick Rose for doing something so special in the city of Chicago, like being from here and owning it and taking it to another level. I don't think a lot of times, I think that's appreciated. It's a discussion for another day. I know she's not from the inner city, but I feel like people don't respect Candace Parker for what she did, coming home and winning a title or whatever. But being those people where it's like,
but then she left.
She was supposed to. It was nothing else to do.
I thought she was supposed to retire as a Sky. I had an issue.
She wasn't supposed to, because but no, you have to look at it when you look at that. They came back to win that second year, and they were all older. They were never going to have another chance. So it's okay if she's like, you know what, with this organization, they've topped out rather. That she came home, she did us. How you gonna be like, I give you $200 and you like, I'm broke, and he be like, he could have gave me 3. Like she gave us, at one point you gotta relax. She didn't have to come and give you a title. That's true. That's true. That's very true. She could have been like, I'm straight, or she could have went someplace. Well, let me finish before you jump in. She could have went someplace that wins titles. She came to a place that had never won a title at home and brought them a title. She could have sat there and greased the skids and be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to some place that's already laden with talent that's winning to ensure that I win again. And she came to an organization that had never won and brought a title. So for me, I never care if you leave after you either did what you're supposed to do or the time for you to contend has closed out. But again,
and I'm not blaming Candace on this. This is more on the ownership of the Sky. But at that point, it should have been, okay, if Vegas is thinking about doing this, maybe we should, double down and bring in some other players.
But they did. But the Sky, like, when you look at what Wade did, he had mortgaged the future, which, in all fairness, what he did after she left was worse, because the Sky should have draft picks to where everybody that came out the last 2 years, they should have had a top 3 pick. And when Wade, GM and coach, mortgaged that to try to continue after, when you look at Vandersloot and Candace leaving, that made no sense. But anyway, all the way back to Derek. I don't mean to poo-poo that. I love Derrick Rose. I love Joakim Noah. I love that era. I miss watching superstar players. I remember, and I'll end on this. I remember I used to watch all Bad Bulls basketball. I used to be a fiend for it, right? Just because you come off that, it's like, I want to see what they do. I remember watching Elton Brand as a Bulls player, a really good player, but it was like watching paint dry. And it was. And I even when they brought in the twin toddlers, and I don't mean no disrespect, that's what they labeled Chicago proper area, Eddie Curry and Tyson Chandler. But what the potential was, I was like, and they had Ron Artest. Brad Miller was cool, but Ron Artest, I didn't really want to let the crazy man go, because that was different. Like, he was D'ing up Kobe. I was like, I can't believe somebody's D'ing up Kobe like this. Anyway, but point being, watching Elton Brand was like, this dude is nice, but I grew up watching Jordan, Pippen, these exciting players. And when Derek came, the first thing I remember was like, damn, I forgot what it was like watching a superstar play. The amount of rewinds, I had a DVR at that time early, and the amount of what the hell did he just do? And that was like, whoa. And Derek, and this gets all the way back to what I was talking about with the reckless abandonment he played with, he put his body on the line so much. Like, it's like when you watch players and you see that they give it everything, regardless of what it could do to their future, you have to appreciate it. So I appreciate, to your point, Smoke, everything. And I'm happy they gave him his props, but I get tired of, we have to go through the rigmarole here in Chicago where we do the same BS, to where you should, even if y'all not seeing eye to eye, there's some things in the family or with friend groups we keep in the background. There's a rapper right now talking about somebody's goat, or through his ancillary people talking about goats and what may be going on in family lives and things like that. And my problem is, there are gentlemen, I have friends that I had real falling outs with, and I have friends that through time we're just not close anymore. And I'm not saying they did anything as far as what that contextually is or whatever. But regardless, I will never say what these gentlemen in our business was or whatever, because that's just how we're supposed to live, by the code that the code is. And maybe I'm old and stupid, but I just feel, and that's it. And I will step back off of the soapbox that I have been on during this show and let you guys cook. I appreciate the time that you've given me. I will thank you for that.
Hey.
But it was cool. Even we can talk about the Bulls, but what Simeon did, he played. He had a game at Simeon. That was really cool. I know you were there, Smoke.
Hey, yes. Hey, that was amazing. To be in the atmosphere of that was crazy. To see the people that showed up, like to show him love. Every player that was pretty much at the game was at Simeon Friday night before the game Saturday. I was shocked to see Brad Miller pop into Simeon.
Brad Miller was there?
Yes. He popped in. He came in looking like a country hillbilly. I'm like, I had to, like, whoa, wait, Brad Miller. Like, but it was an amazing atmosphere, positive atmosphere. And, the things he's doing for Simeon, currently for basketball, but he plans to do more. But the things he's doing, man, is truly amazing. And these kids, they don't even understand how fortunate they are that somebody has come back and could do what he's able to do. And it's great to see that he's able to do it. 'Cause Simeon has been a Nike school for so long, and now that, he get one of his best friends to take over the program and provide him with that opportunity to do something that he's been wanting to do since he's been in this position he's been in. So for him to be able to finally do it, and he's retired, so now he can put his all into it is crazy. It's crazy.
That's outstanding. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, just based on everything Ken was saying and what you alluded to as far as what Derek's doing, money, power, ownership, Chicago, all these things are in constant conflict with one another, and as joyous as that Derrick Rose segment was, you got to bring this to the question that we call the Chicago Bear organization. And what the hell is going on at the House Hall? I don't know about you guys, but kind of to Ken's point, if you're gonna do right by me, that's fine. You do wrong by me, I don't know if I can continue to put my energy and effort into what you're doing, because it causes some consternation with myself. And that being said, the Chicago Bears pretty much have told me, if not, I think everybody else, business as usual. You keep Ryan Poles. Should they decide, it looks like they're going to do that, to continue with Ryan Poles, you are telling everybody that you're going to do the same thing. Whoever is hired is going to be in the same image as all the other previous hires. We've talked about this a couple of times, Ken, and Ez asked a question about a month ago about the McCaskies. Like, are the McCaskies good owners or bad owners? Like, what are they really? And initially I was like, as owners, they do a lot to try and help the team. They pay the players. They've done a great job hiring people of other ethnicities, women. They do a great job with the charities. They stay out of the way. They don't do the Jerry Jones thing. They do their best to hire people to hire football people, so to speak. But therein lies the problem, because I believe what they've done is, and this is since Papa Bear Hallis has passed away, since the McCaskies have taken over, they've hired people to fit this idea they have of themselves as a family-friendly organization, a cuddly organization. And it's not so much that the McCaskies are hiring the coaches, it's the people that they're hiring who are hiring the coaches. Keeping Ted Phillips as long as they did sent a message. The only coach that I can think of that they hired who was the have-to-get hot coach that they went after and that they actually got and landed was Dave Wannstedt. He was that hot coach coming off the Dallas Cowboys championship. He was young. He checked all the boxes. And initially, coach had some success. Plan B free agency, Ted Phillips. And then a couple of moves, i.e. giving away draft picks to get Rick Meyer, quarterback. Doom wants that. It never could recover from that. And coach, whatever successes he had, like he went off of a cliff, off a precipice. And then you look at all the hires since then. The 1 year of Dick Duran and the Lovey years, those two coaches were afterthoughts. They were third or fourth options, maybe even a fifth option. All the other coaches fit this family-friendly image. Nagy's a nice dude, family guy, had some early success. His stubbornness kind of got in the way. You look at Trestman, he was professorial, nerdy type kind of dude. John Fox was the college buddy at the end of his career type kind of guy. Even Flus, nice dude, but really indecisive. All these things, nobody's a rock the boat kind of guy. Even Lovey and Duran weren't rock the boat kind of guys. I mean, Duran was kind of a religious dude. Lovey was a happy to be here kind of guy. Very respectful and all that. Nobody to challenge. And I'm not saying you have to hire the Dan Campbells or the Mike Vrabels or the Belichick's type kind of people, or the loud, vociferous type kind of coach who gets in your face. But they're the Andy Reeds, Tony Dundees out there. They're not hiring coaches that are going to hold ownership accountable. And when you have a GM who, in his 3 years here, 2 of those years are 2 of the worst years in the 100-plus year history of the Chicago Bears, and this is the guy you want to keep. You want to give him another opportunity to do what again? You've had 2 head coaches. You've had 3 offensive coordinators and 2 defensive coordinators. I'm losing count. In the calendar year, you've had 3 offensive coordinators. It is mind numbing. And I think the most egregious thing he did, because you had 2 number 1 picks overall and you got worse. Who does that? Who does that? Even Jacksonville, when they had back-to-back number 1 picks, got better after their second number 1 pick was taken. They had a successful season. Now they didn't sustain it, but they had a successful season. You got worse with 2 number 1 picks, back-to-back years. And the most egregious thing I think you did, the most hubristic thing, and I think hubristic is a word, full of, arrogance or whatever, you did not provide your number 1 pick at quarterback a mentor. There was no veteran quarterback on this team to help him become a professional. I get you want Caleb to start right away. I understand that. That's fine. But you need to have a veteran, someone who has actually played, who Caleb could be like, someone who is seeing bullets real time, so to speak.
Bagent was 2-2 in the league. What are you talking about?
Stop it. Stop it. The fact that Caleb, by the time October hit, played more games than Bagent should let you know that just wasn't the right case. And that was the most egregious thing. So you basically, and on top of drafting a punter, use some of your draft picks, just other things, you utilize your draft picks in the best way. And you drafted
the punter was our MVP. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, wait. Real quick. You drafted, and I'm a big Rome guy, but I wouldn't have drafted Rome. I like Rome, talking to Rome. I think if it works out, Chicago will love Rome. And I know I was an offensive line guy and Joe Alt was off the board. The fact that the trenches are so dire, the year before, you should have drafted Jalen Carter. Hey, Glenn, you were on the stage with me going on when the Jalen Carter thing went on then, and I'm not trying to go back and rehash that. But
Sounds like you are. No, I'm not the guy.
I'm messing with you. But no, again, I know you're joking, but when you look at everything that we were told as far as culture, right? You said you had a culture, this guy had a culture, but this one player, he was not going to be able to fit and destroy the culture when the coach was supposed to make sure the culture was supposed to make the player come along with what we were doing. And when you have a talent, that talent slid to you, right? That talent, when you're talking about Sweat and Carter, we damn near don't even have to talk about defensive line no more. Of course we know it'd be nice to have someone else on the edge in depth. We know that. When we're talking about 3 technique and edge rusher, that means that for Ryan Posey and Cunningham, one side of the trenches is done for the most part. Yes, you have to improve it, but you got 2 studs basically, or Stud and Carter and a nice dude in Sweat on there, right? But the reason I interrupted, and I apologize, you let's just say hypothetically, as you said, you took 2 nice first rounders. You went full project again at tackle. Full project. And I always bring up the Jerry Krause sleuthing. All right, where it's like, I'm gonna prove how smart I am, and nobody's as smart as me. I can find guys that other people. You don't need to do that. Just get the guys that everybody would think. And I used to always say this on Under Center. I used to ask Josh and Alex about Chris Morgan, because Chris Morgan used to get hella passes. Was like, that's not Simo. And I used to be like, so when is it supposed to be Simo? Because he's supposed to be raising the level to another degree, right? But then, and again, I'm with the punter, great. But my problem, and first of all, you're disrespecting a black man and Ryan Poles, and I'm joking because we're both doing it. I'm fully joking. Now, I want to say that because we're being honest, and even because people will use that against us, we're being honest and saying, like, this doesn't make sense. You're sitting there, and you sat there, and you brought in another project. You drafted a punter, and your punter tells us that you're at a point in this window that you truly weren't at in this window. And that's the problem with drafting the punter at this point. It's not that he's not an exceptional punter, but you know how good you have to be to be in the fourth. Like, I'm going punter. You gotta be like, dog, we was just not. You either have to have won the Super Bowl or have been knocking on the window of the Super Bowl to be like, we going punter. second day.
We have no more holes in our roster.
We have no
that
like
we can,
so
we can use a 4th round pick on a punter. That's
right. So judgment is the problem here. Where, and I still to this day will say, and it could be, I could be wrong. I'm a fan of Ryan Poles, but I would have no problem with letting him go. No problem. If that was stopping it, it's not even if it was stopping something. If the Bears was like, we letting them go, I'd be like, I understand. I hate to see it happen, right? But I understand because the trenches, and I mean on both sides. And at first we could sit there and say, well, with DBs, you're doing good. No, not really, because the DBs from last year didn't take another step, right? So his best draft pick is Kyler Gordon. And listen, Kyler Gordon is sweet, right? Like, don't get it twisted. But when your best draft pick is a nickel cornerback, that's a problem when you've had 3 years in a situation. Like, that's a huge, huge problem. And
whoa. No, I gotta check you right there. He drafted a generational quarterback. That's his best pick. He took the first.
That was going to happen regardless.
Let me push you back.
That didn't take guts.
It's smoke. Stirring it up.
No, smoke. I like that, smoke. Stir that up, because that was part of the point that I was gonna say, right? That was, and I can't remember, because I was always fortunate enough when I was working at NBC Sports to have someone with the prowess of Glenn to join us in the debate and go back and forth and stuff about draft picks. One of the things that I was dismayed about, I never thought there was a schism, and I'm a Caleb guy. I never thought there was a schism between Caleb and Jaden. I just didn't. I didn't think that it was like, man, it's like this and that. I never saw that. My real thing was Jaden was probably going to get hurt, how he ran and how slight he was, and that kind of made me fearful. That was really, and even with talking to draft nicks, and I would ask them on the show, hey, do you feel that when you look at what going from Oklahoma, of course, the Heisman year, then even though this year is down, it's still a good year for Caleb. Do you feel that, at Arizona State and then coming to LSU, and then at the last part of LSU year, then this year he took off, is that a hindrance? Would you use that against Jaden? And they were like, no, I think that's a plus on Jaden. But the fact you didn't interview Jaden, and again, I'm not saying that this is revisionist. I'm not saying revisionist history. I'm not saying they messed up, because even if Jaden is this much better than Caleb and Caleb reaches this, I'm fine with that. But the fact that you, and the funny thing is, and I was thinking about this yesterday, it goes to the dire situation the Bears and the disrespect. This isn't just on Ryan Poles, that the Bears are in when no one believes in them, especially on offense, that you had to sell this much, or you felt you had to sell this much to Caleb, that we're not even talking to people. Where I don't feel like it would have been an insult to say we're meeting with this young man or whatever. But all of these issues that we're talking about when it comes to Ryan Poles leads me to, if you're telling me that Ryan Poles is a hindrance on why someone that you think could be franchise altering at the coaching position is stopping you, there is no reason for you to retain him at this point, because he hasn't built up enough equity where you can be like, nah, man, I think it's a chance that we got to hold on to him, because he hasn't at this point done enough. Even if Kevin Warren talks about how young he is in his career, still, I know I'm with you, Glenn. And it could also be used as a disservice to say that about a grown man that's been in his profession all these years. So that part, right? But even if you're saying that, there's no equity into where we're like, man, like it would be where he at least had to find 2 other guys that we was like, damn, but he did find so-and-so and so-and-so. Outside of Kyler Gordon, where it was like, man, he may have some, he hasn't. And that's where it's like, to everything, I'm sorry, getting back to what Glenn was saying about this franchise and ownership doing what it usually does with this mom and pop BS to a certain degree, where, and I'm happy that they've gone into candidates that are Black, right? Or other cultures and women. That's great. But the problem is when you're still using the same formula that you use, even if they're white candidates, this is the problem. And that to sit there, and I don't think, and a lot of people like bash the McCaskies. I'm gonna say this: I damn sure don't think they're the worst ownership in Chicago, right? Like back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you could say they were cheap when it came to players. You can be like, man, they was cheap. They were cheap. They're not cheap like that any longer, but they still don't know, even when it seems like they get out of the way to get out. Stop going to the same people as advisors to help you do something. At this point, you should have. Go ahead, Glenn. What are you about to say?
I hear what you're saying, but I disagree because I think the McCaskies are the problem because it's I don't know if it's innuendo, I don't know if it's in tone or how it comes across, but whomever is hired as head coaches, it seems to be reflective of the type of personalities they want to be reflective of the organization. I think they're so image conscious.
I didn't say they weren't the problem, Glenn. I didn't say they weren't the problem. I said they weren't cheap. I said they weren't the worst. No, I said they weren't the worst ownership in Chicago. I did not say they weren't the problem whatsoever. Please continue. I just want to point that out.
I think we're kind of saying the same thing differently, and I agree with you because earlier on I led in was saying that they do a lot of things right. There are a lot of things as owners that they do right. So I would that kind of coincides with you're saying they're not the worst ownership. Their Achilles heel, the one thing that kind of almost negates all the good things that they do, is that the coaches and or head coaches and or GMs that invariably are hired under them to represent their organization keep getting the same type of people, and they're not getting the ones that are holding ownership accountable. They're not getting rock the boat, take the bull by the horns type of leadership. They're missing that, and they got lucky with Lovey, and they got fortunate with 1 year with Dick Duran. With that being said, it makes no sense for them to be as bad as they've been, as long as they've been, considering all the resources they have at hand. And they keep making the same mistakes. And the fact that they went from Ryan Pace, or is it Ryan Pace?
Pace, yeah.
They went from Pace to Poles in almost the same fashion is concerning. And then that they retain Poles, just like they retained Pace, when you should have let them go. And you're retaining Poles to do what exactly? You mentioned in terms of his decision making. Poles is decision making. We didn't even get into the coaching hires. You know, we're talking about Shane Walters.
Do you think the Eberflus? Do you totally blame him for hiring Eberflus though?
Here. I thought about this. Here's the thing with Eberflus. Here's the thing with Poles. I think other GMs may have told the Bears, "Hell no, if I can't pick my own coach." But I think Poles is like, "I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I'll settle on one of the three." And I think I think that's what happened.
Who do you think? What? Okay, so I really want to dive into this conversation.
Think about it. Think before you ask me a question.
Let me ask you something because I want to dive into this. And then Glenn, you know, you're older than me, so
whoa! Put up the punches, Tyson. Man,
no. I mean that because I'm not the dude, and I'm not like, I don't call Glenn Unk. I'm not one of those dudes that be out here just randomly calling cats Unk and shit. Like that ain't even how. But I do feel like if you feel like there's someone that's been put in your life that can benefit you, that may have some more wisdom, you should listen. So I mean that to that. I just where I mean that. Like I do. That's not that I think everything that I say that you know more than me, or you may have more wisdom, but I can correct your ass. But point big, I do. But I rather have this conversation. So this is the thing, because it's funny when you say that. So I think one of the big things, and I this is on them because they're adults, George, or however you want to look. One thing we could talk about where you're talking about John Fox being the first guy that had coaching experience before getting hired. But where's the GMs that had been a GM, successful GM? You look at remember that I felt like there were rumors about DeCastro when Ozzie Newsome was raising him up. And I know Ozzie still got had a little bit of hands over with the Baltimore Ravens. But you look at the culture, even when the culture slips a little bit, that the Ravens have, and that what you could have infused in here. And I feel like that, to your point, Glenn, is one of the biggest issues, because when it comes to the guy that's running the organization, he's always learning. And then 9 times out of 10, he's supposed to hire someone that's learning too. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is that we're both learning on the job. So now you're fumbling at times. Even if you're successful, you're still learning on the job. And if I'm the coach, I'm learning. And there's some things that you can't tell me because you haven't been with the coach in that position to tell me when you see certain things. But then also looking at what Ryan posed and what you said about your feelings of other GMs. I know that Ryan Poles, and this is just me talking out loud, was a candidate for several jobs at the time. They were fearful of Minnesota, and we know Quasi Adolfo getting that job and what he's done there, even though Minnesota lost tonight. But you look at what they've done so far. But still, I feel like sometimes when you've been put in certain situations and you want a job, there's an inference that, yeah, you can do this, but you know this is what you're supposed to do. And my biggest issue outside of the draft situation with Poles was, I think Poles could have had it. Let's just say he stayed here for 6.5 years. I think he had the runway for 3 coaches, and he blew that shit. And I don't know, and this is my thing, Glenn, and you're even plugged in, and even as with some of the stuff that you have, and even you, Smoke, because I know you got guys, I don't know how, just from baseball or whatever, and Grambling, how plugged in you with the bigs and stuff like that, with Eugene being a baseball guy from back in the days. But still, the reason I bring it up, I sit there and I wonder, this past offseason, did he have full power? Because common sense was to fire Eberflus. And was he gun-ho, like, this is my guy and I'm gonna give him a chance? Because and when you mentioned, Glenn, earlier, you said, and you were right, not having a veteran quarterback was the biggest issue. I think that's 1A. Not having a former head coach on this roster this season was also one of the biggest issues, because clearly there was going to be a chance that your coach was going to suck and you were going to have to fire him. And had no one, even at an advisory role, that had ever been a head coach. And Flus hadn't imbued himself with with us being like, man, we got to get him a straight chance. And no, it's like, dude, you fuck up him, and at least he knows how to set the roster on game day, have the structure, and be a CEO. And that, to me, that's one of the things with Poles I really want to know. Was that him doing that, or was that ownership or whoever? And I don't know. Go ahead. That's all I want. That was my question.
Here's the thing we don't know because we're not in the rooms. And what I'm saying is speculation, but it's speculation based off of observation over time, not just a reactionary thing. And we're not in the rooms when, the decisions are made with those decision makers at that high level. But what seems to be the case to me is, I think people who are interviewing for these jobs, for head coaching jobs and GM jobs, they can smell BS a mile away. They can smell a bad situation. They can smell, this isn't conducive to my success or me being in a situation to be successful. I think Kingsbury, the Bears didn't hire him. I think Kingsbury was more like, yeah, no, I'm good, because if I'm Kingsbury and I'm interviewing, I'm going to say, hey, is there a chance for me to have the head coaching job if something goes awry? And if they're like, well, no, we just need your offensive coordinator, okay, I'm good. And I think there's enough things where people can tell that there's enough dysfunction and not enough of a pointed leadership or organizational structure in their organization where you can clearly see the delineation of going here, here, and here, and it's kind of all over the place. And you can see that in how all these guys have been hired over the last several years. You're getting a head coach out of place with your
first. Cliff didn't think he was a Bears guy though. Didn't Cliff not feel that the Bears felt like he was their guy?
I was going to say, how do you know Eberflus didn't say, yeah, I don't want this guy?
I think some of us get our information from some of the same spots. But
I'm just saying,
from what
I don't want this guy coming in and trying to usurp my
you're right.
my authority right here.
Lovey was the same way with Rivera.
Lovey kicked Ron Rivera out because he knew when it went bad, they was going to put Ron Rivera at the head coaching spot, which again was silly. And that's also why Lovey didn't bring in, outside of Mike Martz, who of course wouldn't take the position, an offensive coordinator who would have had the chance to really, in my opinion, Glenn, to really usurp him. Now, it could be that an offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not talking about at the very end of Lovey, but I'm talking about in the middle, because when Lovey had those eras of not hitting the playoffs, people would have been like, yo, let's do this. And I felt like Lovey was covering his ass at times.
The issue with that,
same way we said about Ron Rivera.
You couldn't get going back then, you couldn't get a good offensive coordinator because Lovey didn't have the contract years under his belt. So guys weren't going to come in here. Guys weren't going to come in here. We talking about 2008, right after Ron Turner left. 2008, 2009.
But even Ron Turner,
you couldn't bring in a guy because he only had 1 year left on his contract. He was a lame duck at the point at that.
But
at that
even
time.
Ron Turner, my point is, even Ron Turner, when you're talking about bringing him back, Ron Turner's true success was that he had a lit year with Eric Kramer. Right, like and again, it was great. I believe me, I was a youth. It was fantastic. I wish it was more Curtis Conway and it wasn't Graham, but it was
two
fantastic.
Years. Yeah, 2 years.
If that's what you want to say.
Right. They got to a playoffs with Steve Walsh.
No. I'm talking about where the numbers were crazy.
Right.
Where
he had 95, 96.
First of all, look, I know Ez. I see now I gotta know your age, because if you talking about anybody back then, and of course you may be because of Wani, because Wani got on me when I was like, man, I really wish you would have just played Kramer. He was like, Steve Walsh did this for me and smacked me like
I'll tell you something. He had to stick with Walsh. I'm
joking.
Oh,
but in all fairness, I'm talking about having, as a Bears culture or just as a Bears team, a crazy offensive year. That 1 year that they had,
the year where they had Conway and Jeff Graham went for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and it was Rashad Salam. Was Rashad Salam the running back?
No, that was Raymond Harris.
Raymond Harris,
right?
Okay, but just that 1 year, right, was one of the craziest years, because we didn't see it happening, right? But that 1 year, so you go back and get a guy that you or Vi no longer wanted. And mind you, shout out to Brett Bielema and what they're doing down with the Illini, right? But I'm saying, like, when we're talking about, that's the problem. We're talking about a guy. So go back to what Glenn was saying about Wani was hot. So anybody doesn't know, since we like to do history lessons, and I'm not saying that to be joking. I think a lot of people should know his. Like when you do sports, when I grew up, you had to know. Like I know the stuff in the 70s and the 60s, and I had a pops to help me. But you're supposed to know things before, not just when you were seeing it. So it's just not like, man, when I was a lad, that was the best time. No, you're supposed to know before that. So my point being, so when he was talking about, and people won't believe it, Wani was one of the hottest candidates. There was someone else that was a hot candidate from that Dallas organization. It was the offensive coordinator, Norv Turner, his brother, Ron's brother, that went to become the head coach at Washington.
Marvin Barry, the other Barry, Marvin Barry, this your cousin.
So my point being, we're talking about Tito, Tito, RIP Tito. We're talking about Randy. That's what I meant to get to. We're talking about Randy, right? So we know that you never seen that clip where Randy keep doing that move and Michael start dancing and he like, come on, Randy, let's go. And Randy can do that move, sweet, that one move, but Randy can't do nothing else. That's Ron Turner, right? That one move, right? That's Ron, and we talking about Ron Turner being here and Lovey bringing him back, where it was like, dog, Lovey at that point. Remember, the whole thing with Ron Rivera was Lovey had gained so much power that he was able to push Ron Rivera out because they made it to the Super Bowl. So it was a place where Lovey had the power. And again, and I'll get off of this because this isn't what we're talking about, and I apologize for taking us over here. But just again, so people know, but when we're talking about that, he could have brought in someone who could have left, or like for me personally, like for instance, like, and again, I'll end it like this. So like with Under Center, I always said, and I always said this, if I ever got fired from that show, and I told Glenn this, and it wasn't that I just mentioned to Glenn, the person that I wanted to run that show was Glenn, right? I was like, hey, if something happens, it's this guy right here. I'm not the type of person where I'm going to shut you out if you may beat me out. Like, that's just not the type of cat because I'm supposed to step my game up, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just saying for me, and again, you could say that's a flaw, right? But to me, at one point, Lovey, and again, covering your ass, was covering his ass to the point that he didn't bring in someone who, even if they would have left to go someplace else, and I understand why, and I don't care what nobody says, particularly being a brother in that situation where people will be ready to let you go, and this young, or not even young, this offensive coordinator. But I do think that was a hindrance to what he was doing.
But it's one thing to bring in to say, okay, we're gonna bring in somebody that could, possibly do that. But you want to bring in somebody that you can trust. Cliff Kingsbury is not one of his guys, right? Talking about Eberflus, right?
You're right.
When Lovey did that with Ron Rivera, remember we brought in later on. Who did he bring in? Rob Marinelli.
I just answered your question. Somebody bad. How
Well,
many
Rob Marinelli wasn't bad.
No, he's somebody he trusted and knew.
Right. That's somebody he trusted.
Same thing.
All right.
So it's somebody that could have taken over for him. And in fact, could have stayed when Lovey left.
Just because you trust them,
I'm just because I'm not saying it's right.
So now you're saying, are you equating?
Right. I'm saying that's what.
I see what you're saying.
That's what it is.
So Glenn is Rob Marinelli going one. But what was the record? Was it 0-16?
Yeah,
and it was Mike Martz.
But Rob,
it was Mike Martz. See, you see what he's saying about you, sir? It was Mike Martz. Where no, dude, you bring in someone that nobody want. Mike Martz, who nobody wanted, and traded Greg Olsen because he doesn't use. That
was stupid.
He can't modify what he's doing.
But they were guys that he trusted.
Yeah, that's a fault.
He worked for March in St. Louis. Rob Marinelli is his best friend.
Yeah, and he trained, and he's under the same tree as far as
but you know
as
what?
Defensive schemes go.
But even with the Rob Marinelli thing, right? This is the thing. Hey, buddy, I want you to come in and coach the D-line. I don't want you to come in and be the de facto and then the defensive coordinator. I know now if you coach
he was a DC. He came in as DC.
That's my point. But that's what I'm saying. He shouldn't have been the DC.
Why not?
Shouldn't have been the DC. He should have been the D-line coach. He wasn't a fantastic DC with the Bears. He wasn't a fantastic DC with the Bears. He was a better D.
They got to an NFC championship with him.
He was a better defensive line coach than he was a DC. He was a better defensive line coach than he was a DC. He was not a fantastic.
I don't think it was a bad DC.
So what's the bar we setting on this motherfucker? Is he bad or is he good?
I don't think it was a bad DC. That's
but that's what you just said. He wasn't bad. And then we talk about him as a head coach. What's the I'm talking about as what's the bar that we're because Lovey still had to come back and take over the defense.
No. That's when he gave it to Bob Babbage.
That's when he gave it to Bob Babbage.
Oh, my bad. So it wasn't Rob Marinelli?
No.
That was Bob Babbage.
That was a former linebacker coach. Right. He made DC.
But he gave after Rivera got fired, he promoted Bob Babbage from linebacker coach to DC.
Right.
Okay.
He then had to take over as the DC because Babbage wasn't a good DC.
No, he wasn't.
Then later on, he brought in Marinelli.
Yeah,
you guys, I'll take that from you guys.
Okay, so that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is,
as I take another sip.
All I'm saying is, you're gonna bring in somebody. If you're gonna bring in somebody that has credentials as good as yours, it's gonna be somebody that you trust, that you know is not gonna try to run a coup on you.
You just said
they did on Lovey, like they did on Lovey in Tampa Bay.
You just said something though, is just said something.
What?
Bring in somebody that got credentials like yours. What the fuck credentials Eberflus had?
Well, none. I'm just saying.
I mean,
no, he did.
I'm saying no, but I'm telling you, he was a good DC. But I'm saying if Eberflus when you
I get it for Lovey.
Yeah. With Kingsbury, here's a guy that is clearly an aspiring head coach. All right, he got fired in Arizona.
Was it inspiring?
He still is an aspiring head coach. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach. I know he wants to
I
be a
think
head
he
coach.
wants to, but I mean, he left very badly from Arizona.
Yes.
And I
he
mean,
went to,
the
and what did
only
he do?
the only thing that would
he
have
went to USC for a year to sort of,
and I
clear some
think the
things
thing
up.
with Chicago
And now
was
he's the OC
fascinating
in Washington.
was his
And
relationship with K.
he's going to be a head coach soon. So I'm sure Eberflus is like, yeah, I don't want that dude around me. Because as soon as stuff gets south mid-season,
But he didn't know
gonna
what.
get me out of there.
But he didn't know what was going to happen in Washington.
And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying
point that
was his thinking there.
Getting already back, Poles was supposed to negate that though. Like that was my initial point to where Glenn was talking about quarterback, a veteran quarterback.
And I'm sure him together and him with them both having the same agent.
Well, dude, at one point,
probably.
Listen, Trace
he went through the Trace
channel. Trace can tell me whatever.
Tell him Cliff is not an option.
No, but dog, this is my job, and I'm trying to ensure my ass.
And this is why he should have been fired.
Well, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think we're all on the same page.
I mean,
I think we're all on the same page. I'm just saying that was the rationale that was going on when all this took place.
I've said this to y'all a while ago. Like he made it seem like we were a one-player problem.
Mm-hmm.
Every move he made in the offseason indicated that Justin Fields was our problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not the coaching. Mm-hmm. Well, the OC.
The OC. But we take care of that.
But not the head coach. Not the O-line. Not the D-line. He made it seem that we were a one-player problem at the quarterback position. And not only
the head coach, you mean the defensive coordinator. I'm sorry, but please go ahead. Not the head coach.
And so I don't think it was necessarily a McCaskey's decision to keep Eberflus. I think it was Poles' decision.
But he was extended though. See, my problem with that, and this is why they don't tell. I don't care how much money someone's making, you can keep that. But when you extend people, and I understand why. So we brought up the Trace Arms.
You're talking Poles.
I'm talking
Eberflus. I'm talking Eberflus, right? Because the thing is this. Hey, look.
Wait, he got it.
You telling me something?
Right.
Yeah, he got extended.
Flus wasn't at the end of his contract. Flus got I believe, and I could be wrong. Please fact check. I'm pretty sure, and I remember the discussion. Flus had gotten more years at the end of his contract, which I'm going to be honest with you. And this gets back to the Trace Armstrong thing. Because if we're rebuilding and we basically, quote unquote, for 2 years tanked, easily it's my ass on the line. Give me some security. All right? Like, that's just a natural reaction. Like, I'm being honest. That's not a knock on Trace Armstrong or Eberflus or whatever. Right.
When did the extension?
This was prior. And again, if I'm wrong, I will sit on here and say I'm wrong. I remember hearing insiders or whatever. Flus was not on his initial contract by the end of this. This was not his initial contract, right? Like this
is year 3 though, right? Well, this was. The 2024 season was year 3, right?
Beginning of year 3. It's kind of like what they did with Nagy and Pace a little bit. They didn't disclose the fact that they had kind of
that point. That's exactly what.
So what was the original contract?
So it was the first 3. I believe it was either 3 to 4 years. He had more money added years to add to that contract, which I'm not saying it's wrong because look at.
Sorry about that house.
Right. No, that ain't. You don't buy that when you can get fired.
It was a nice house.
Right. You don't buy the Cliff Kingsbury where you may get knocked out. Right. Mm-hmm. And Cliff still say he got that crib in Arizona. Right. But my point being, and I understand for Flus, because it's like, listen, homie, dog, listen, you look at my record. My record basically says that I can be on the streets. Right. I understand that. But that's where, and I'll put this on ownership. This is where why I initially brought up ownership. Because usually when you're talking about, we got to play another coach and we have to bring in somebody else, y'all got to make this work. And that's where the problem for me if this is true, arises. Because in all fairness for me, regardless of how close they may have been or the lack of power that Ryan Poles had, he had to break with Matt Eberflus after last year. Like that was, and when I said earlier that he could have had the chances for 3 head coaches, he had to let go of Flus, and Flus had to be the sacrifice. I don't think
based off history alone, just based off our history.
Forget, he brought that defensive coordinator in, and we still don't know what the hell happened. All right, that was his guy. That wasn't a simple situation where it was like like Ryan Poles put them together. No, he verified that cat. Right, that was his. Like,
well, they were together for a while. They were
right
in Indianapolis together.
Saying when you're using the excuse that Flus, this ship was spiraling and Flus pulled us up. He's the person that pushed the damn thing down into the like you can't say like that's where the whole. So this gets back to Glenn's point of ownership, because ownership is supposed to be like at some point like, whoa, yo, we've been down this road before. This seemed like the same stuff we've been doing the last decade or whatever. Let's stop doing this. Let's stop having a GM that's not even on the same timeline as perhaps his future head coach. Either, and I'm not saying to extend Poles, but we may, even if we like Poles, we may have to let Poles go, because we have to do this over again to make this shit right. Go ahead, Glenn.
That's just it. The Bears are such a reactionary organization, and that by the Bears, I'm talking the McCaskies. They're so reactionary to what the media says, both nationally and locally. Because to your point, Poles and Eberflus were on the same timeline. They got hired at the same time. The president came in later. Then you let the quarterback was on the same timeline because he was here before both those guys got here. So the quarterback is not their guy. They said that starting out. Quarterback, they
came out with that narrative right away.
Right away. That hey, Justin.
Media did. Yeah. Media did.
So you already knew that Justin was under the gun, so to speak. And it gets ridiculous because for whatever reason, the ownership seems to have this infatuation with certain people. And when they like them, they allow them to go ahead and do stupid shit over and over again. They like Pace. They like Poles. There's a certain personality, something, however it is, I don't know what it is, that they like, whether it's at the GM or the head coaching position. I mean, think about it. Mike Ditka was hired before Hallis passed away, right? They weren't even looking for Mike Ditka. He wrote a letter to Papa Bear Hallis saying he was interested in the job. He said, hey, I know we had a little falling out. I'm really interested in the job. These are the reasons why. He wrote a letter, like he was trying to find somebody that wasn't scouting him out and he wanted to get to a college. Hey, I'm just.
They probably weren't. He was the Cowboys special teams coach.
Special teams coach, right? Yeah. He wrote a letter, and Papa Bear was like, hey. Probably like how Michigan, like Schembechler. I want a Michigan man in the job. I want a Bear. I want a true Bear. Mike Ditka's a Hall of Fame Bear. He represents the Bears. This is my last dying breath. I'm going to hire this guy. And it worked out because Jim Finks was a really good GM, and they wrote, the merits of
Buddy Ryan. And Buddy Ryan was a hell of a defensive coordinator. So those things line up. But again, that's getting lucky. That wasn't like really planned out well. And that's another example of the DC's here. You can take the job, Mike, but you got to keep the DC. Mike was like, I don't want to keep. I want my own DC. Not if you want this job. Exactly. Okay. And that's what the Bears continually do.
But it worked though.
It worked, but it was sustainable because of Jim Finks though, and the draft picks that were there.
That was in the 80s,
and that was a different time.
And has any of that shit worked?
You didn't have free agency either. So you can hold on to those guys a lot longer, and you have power over them. But you're right. The fact that he could, but you know what? With going with that and us using that as a negative, it's a positive, because even though because some people want to have like rose-colored glasses when it comes to George Hallis, because the Bears weren't winning for a long time.
Oh, I know. I'm living through that. I am old enough to remember that.
Yeah,
this ain't a you thing. This is just historically, because all of the weird Bears type of curse, this Muggs curse that comes out now. I don't know if y'all have how bad things have gotten, where everybody is the murder for hire. It's just stealing and all. It's just like there wasn't enough money for them to be able to pull all this off. But anyway,
no, not back then.
Yeah, back then. Understand? Like they don't own Home Depot. This isn't a situation where they got side money and could do
That's
these
actually
things.
if by the way, if you want to read up on that, read up on what happened with the succession plan with Muggs Hallis and everything. It's really interesting and how the McCaskies ended up with it. It's kind of interesting.
But people are now like that this has now become the focus. Just like everyone that like, and I know we all had these friends where it's not that we don't think perhaps new ownership would be better. But like when you're having discussion, it's like they just need to sell the team. It's like, yeah, but they're not. So then how are we gonna get? They're making more money. They're making more money now than they thought they ever could make.
Man, we need somebody.
We do, but that's
I'm just saying they ain't gotta sell the team. We just need somebody that's gonna go in that interview, tell them all they need to hear.
They're not gonna hire him. Not to say he was great, but see Chris.
No.
But my initial point,
be the friendly person, like GM say, and then come in and turn into who they really is once they already under contract.
But my initial point was the fact that George Halas had, and of course we know who he was with professional football. He had the acumen to know that Buddy Ryan was too special to let him go, let alone, as Glenn pointed out, with Mike Ditka fishing for a job. It's not even like you were the hire. I'm bringing you in because I think you may have something special, but this dude got something special too. So that and that's actually, in all fairness, the point that I'm trying to bring up is what they're missing from ownership. Like they don't know, like even with all the throwing nickels like manhole covers from back in the past, when you're talking about players' problems with when it comes to George Halas with spending money and things like that. But he knew that at that point in the late 70s, early 80s enough to do that because of his football acumen. And they don't have that to know, hey, you know what? Let's hold on to him because he's special. And this guy could be special. I see it. They don't have that. And that's part of the problem with what's going on, in my opinion, with Halas Hall right now.
I agree. And it's reflected in the people that they hire because they're finding people that reflect in their mindset, what they consider to be professional and having football due diligence. And they say a couple of words and they're like, okay, yeah, this is the guy. And then so much so that they've admitted it, they being the McCaskies have admitted it, because they're having agencies go out and find these people to help hire for them. So
got to give it to them this time. They're not this time.
Yeah, but to play a little devil's advocate on the side that, okay, George had the sense to say, you need to keep this guy. Why the hell didn't he promote that guy?
Because you saw what happened in Philadelphia.
Yeah, because
he wasn't or Arizona.
So wait, he was there before us. Look, I'm not.
No, I'm saying so. Buddy Ryan. So when you're talking about
he went to Philly after
Philly, he went to Philly, and then he went to Arizona. Buddy Ryan, even though Philly had a great general manager, they had talent. But Buddy Ryan, and he looked out for Chris Carter, sending him away when Chris Carter had off the field issues back then. But he was never a great head coach. George Halas knew that Buddy Ryan was probably a better defensive coordinator than being someone to run the entire operation.
Buddy Ryan didn't have a big picture. He was so hyper focused on his defense, and the defense, from that he could rule the roost. It's like, now you have to have a balance. You have to have an offense. You have to have a bigger picture.
They had a great defense in the 81 season. And I guess the story is the players from that defense wrote Halas a letter and said they want Buddy Ryan to stay as DC.
If you wrote a letter to George Halas, you got a good chance of being read.
Yeah. You like letters.
You like letters.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
So maybe an email might work with the McCaskies. I don't know. Or really strong text. It's just so here's the thing. We've hashed this out in terms of our frustrations of past Bears and Bear machinations. Going forward, of these coaches that are out there, who, and each one of us, name a person, it can be the same person, who do you feel should be the best option for Chicago going forward?
Go for it.
Mike McCarthy.
Damn.
Oh my God! Really?
I'm with you.
Mike McCarthy.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on
McCarthy.
to that. Hold on. Before you explain, I just want to hear. Just give me a name. Kid, we're gonna get back to you. Both of you McCarthy. Just give me a name, kid.
I mean, Ben Johnson is the low-hanging fruit. But can I give you my second name to go along with the? Because I'll also say this. My problem with Mike McCarthy is when you look at the fact of he was still kind of running the same offense because of course, Dak being just knowing the offense and familiar with that offense. And you look at, and it's not a knock on him because Mike McCarthy could come here and he may be able to make the Bears good for real. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the thing is with Dallas, we still don't know if he grew from where the inabilities from where Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and when their wide receiver talent and running back talent was decimated, and he didn't necessarily know how to advance the offense through motion and different, like he didn't grow with the NFL. So that's the only fear that I have with Mike McCarthy, because if you got talent, Mike McCarthy can do some stuff. But if you have to, let's just say you got good running backs and you got one good receiver, I don't know.
We got offensive talent.
I thought we did.
No, but all right. So, but look, like even if you look at, like, for instance, Detroit, and my problem with Ben Johnson is he's never been a head coach, right? But the thing, and especially when you talk, but see, Glenn, when you say that, you're talking about how powerful Dan Campbell is, and I still don't know. So it's a lot of guys falling in line with that. And I said Ben Johnson's my guy, Glenn. I can say a guy's my guy and still give you problems with perhaps why you can say it. But this is the thing. When you look at the fact, if we're like you look at Jameis Williamson or Williams, I get his name messed up because of Jameis or whatever. Thank you. I appreciate it.
J-Dub.
Just look out for me. Smoke, look out for me a little bit.
J-Dub.
Right? But you know, either from gambling or injuries, he's not going to be around, right? And you basically got Amon-Ra St. Brown and some running backs, and then Sam Laporta took off. But Sam Laporta didn't have the what he had this year. But still, you look at what I am now. I have always been a hater, and I'm wrong. And give him his props of Jared Goff, right? Because I always say when Ben Johnson leaves, man, Jared Goff, we're going to see. I think Jared Goff's going to be good when Ben Johnson leaves. I don't know if he's going to be but I think he's going to be damn good when Ben Johnson leaves. But they don't have like great wide receivers in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when you look at what Mike McCarthy has had now, is dwindled now. He has some good stuff. Like Jerry as a GM is good, but he doesn't find glue guys. He doesn't find guys that get the organization going. And then the fact that you can usurp the head coach and go to him, it messes up everything because there's no accountability because you don't have to listen to the coach. And that's the biggest thing with he should stop players from being able to come to him. No, it's what he says or whatever, but Jerry wants to be out front. Like, there's no reason he should be having interviews every week. That's ridiculous. You're the owner.
That's a big reason why I think he should come here.
I agree.
Because our ownership ain't shit either.
Yeah, but
it ain't as boisterous.
He fell off, but I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll jump back in.
It's not like Jerry Jones at all. But he knows. He
didn't know it with Green Bay no more though. So my point is when Green Bay could no longer infuse, we got to think they had Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson. Like we went up there, like Green Bay had, when he took over, had crazy talent. And when those players either left or got old, he didn't know how to help Aaron Rodgers get better without having Green Bay usually has good receiver corps. Like that's one thing for the last 20 years, 25 years. They may not have, and they can have close to the best receiver. I blame
Aaron Rodgers.
Not back then. You can blame him for like the last 7 years, but not back then. Not back then. So that, again, to answer your question, that's my hesitancy, but I don't think Mike McCarthy is crazy, but I don't see it. But I'll end with this. My number 2 guy is Brian Flores. Give me, and I lovingly say this, and it's wrong. Give me the snitch. And it's wrong because a lot of people.
It needed to happen.
No. A lot of people wouldn't have the mental fortitude, the balls, and I don't want to say balls because it's women that could do it, to do what he did, let alone as a black man to say, yo, this isn't right. But there's a fear. So, but if I owned the business, I'm an imperfect human. Having a whistleblower, I'd be like, I don't know if he's gonna blow the whistle on me. But in all fairness, I've come to grips with he's been a head coach. Brian Flores, and I know that Minnesota lost tonight. He's a different type of defensive coordinator. He's not just, I got my scheme, we're gonna run it. He's like, I got something for them this game. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's one of them. So for me, it's Ben Johnson and Brian Flores. Glenn, to answer your question.
Okay, I'll throw mine, and then I won't listen to why both Ez and Smoke want McCarthy like a retread of retreads. Good Lord. I like Liam Cohn over at with the Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's the OC or
the OC. The OC. And to get Baker Mayfield harnessed enough to where Baker improved from last year to this year, and that offense at times was humming, and to take young talent like the running back and be able to help develop him and get him good.
Urban is killing it.
Yes, and to develop the young wide receiver out of Washington, McMillan, and to see these tight ends develop and the offensive line. There's a purposefulness to the play calling. It makes sense. They're competitive. There are other things and other reasons why they don't win. Some of it is Baker related. I mean, sometimes he's good, and then sometimes he pulls a Baker. But the Buccaneers otherwise have, they benefit from being in a weaker division. I get that, but they still compete, and they were very close to winning a playoff game last year. So, and they barely lost last night. So they're close. They're there. I think as an OC, I think as OC, but as a head coach, I think he'd have a little bit more say in the type of players that are brought in to help facilitate an offense that doesn't require superstar talent, but glue guys like you're saying, or players that can execute plays and dependability. I like it. I think he's a little understated, but I like him. Now, I am curious why you guys think Mike McCarthy is and I think McCarthy, there's a very low ceiling with McCarthy when it comes to me. I think his floor and his ceiling are really close to one another.
Okay.
And I think he can get the Bears potentially to being a team that wins 10, 11, 10 or 11 games. I don't think he does enough to get them into winning playoff games, and let alone even a Super Bowl, because it becomes a tournament at that point when you get to the playoffs. It's a 2 to 3 game tournament, and you've got to be able to adjust, adapt, and survive and move on. And he has proven from Green Bay to Dallas, he does not have that adaptability. That once you stop him, his initial foray.
Adaptability in the playoffs?
In the playoffs.
Well, period.
No, in the playoffs. I said his ceiling and floor are like this. But I need you to okay, that's great, dude. You got us from winning 5 and 6 games a season to where we're winning 10 and 11.
Hey, that's what we need, though.
You got to get somewhere.
We trying to go.
At least you're gonna be successful.
We trying to go. We think we ain't. We trying to be the Washington Commanders.
No. Here's why. It's funny, and I laugh with you, and I see what you're saying. But the reality is, you've got human beings on very short contracts. And I need these guys to win when we have guys that are here that can win. And this organization has proven it has a difficulty in sustainability when it comes to talent.
Here's the pushback. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that what are we missing here in Chicago right now?
Leadership.
What's been
culture.
The leadership culture? All right. Now this is a guy that was in Green Bay.
You think he's a culture builder?
I think he knows what a good culture should be.
That culture was set before he got there in Green Bay.
Right. And
he didn't set the culture.
He should have, at least, got some of that on him, right? He goes down to Dallas and had to deal with that BS for all these years. Had 3 12-win seasons.
Why did he have to go to Dallas, if he was that special?
He had been in Green Bay for freaking 13
nobody
years.
Wanted his.
Hold on. Listen to me. Listen, he had been in Green Bay for 13 years. I'm sure the message got stale at that point. That happens. All right.
Okay.
All right. He goes to Dallas. You got to deal with Jerry Jones and the zoo that is Dallas. He goes 12-5 for 3 straight years. All right. This
With
past
all that
season,
talent.
with
all
this
that
Thank you. All that talent.
we would kill to be 12-5 right now. We would
I'm
kill
saying
to be 12-5.
Yes, but I'm saying the talent has a lot to do with it more so than just what the fuck he was doing. He benefited from a lot of talent.
Wait a minute.
They had like 8-6-3 dudes on defense.
Yeah,
and then
we're winning 5 games a year right now.
Offense and offensive
and
line.
we're winning 5 games a year.
Wait a minute, but wait a minute though. That's not fair though, man. Because when Jason Garrett was there, they were 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. When Mike McCarthy,
they didn't have the talent, but you know what? They didn't even have dog. When you look at when you look at from let's not even say the defensive line as much when you talk about Michael Parsons and then Gregory left, but what they have and Lawrence being there, dog, from linebackers to the back end, like Jerry. The problem with Jerry Jones, and I said before, it's the glue. Dog, he can pick some cats. But
the quarterback turns into a scrub in the big moments.
I'm not denying that, but this is still my only issue. Culturally, because Green Bay in itself is a culture.
Yeah,
it's a culture. So I don't know if Mike McCarthy, if offense is supposed to be his prowess, is because he's still using Kellen Moore's stuff. I don't know if his offense, and we know, and again, he may have, and I know that him and his guys were sitting in a room doing things, acting like they was coaching week to week or whatever, and I'm not saying it to knock him, but he didn't even get a chance to use that, what he thought he was going to do because of Jerry, and it may not be fair to Jerry. But my fear with him is to what Glenn really said, and I want to say this too. I want to be very vulnerable here. My problem with the Bears is this, and I said this to Tony Gill. I talked to Tony Gill from NBC the other day. He called me, and we were talking about it. I said, you know what, Tony? I'm looking for the Bears to have an A to C guy, and I got to realize they may just need an A to B guy, right? And when I say that, they lack culture so badly. When you look at the fact that Matt Eberflus was a really good defensive coordinator, really, really good defensive coordinator, right? That defense was sputtering without a rudder. And even with him being gone, there was supposed to be let alone players, to be like, yo, this is what the fuck we do, right? And it still may have moments where he may have sent blitzes or did certain things in game situationally that would have allowed them to prevail. But they don't have the culture. And this is why I kind of earlier, and it was on me. I didn't expand on bringing Eric DeCastro here. Like when you look at Baltimore, regardless if they don't have, like now Baltimore got defensive linemen again, right? But even when they didn't have defensive linemen, they still had a culture, right? It's still like, man, we gonna get on their asses. You know what I'm saying? And that to me is one of the problems where, and I mean this, and this can go with Ben Johnson because I don't know, but I'm applying this to Mike McCarthy. I think, and I want the Bears to what Glenn said. I want them to have a guy that I think can get them to the Super Bowl, but I have to talk to myself in my mind when I have these discussions. Man, do they just need somebody who can fortify them to where even if it's a next guy, that he's not starting from the bottom again. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing that we don't realize. Like they're at the bottom.
So that right there is why I say McCarthy.
But Mike McCarthy didn't start from the bottom.
But I believe he can change our culture in winning.
Okay.
Now do we become a Super Bowl team? I don't think so. I don't think so right now. He might not be the coach to be a Super Bowl team.
He might.
Or he might. Who knows?
We
don't know.
He won't. I can guarantee that. You want to Bears? You want to put some money on that? I got a high $100 bill.
I'm not willing to make that bet.
Yeah,
it's the Bears. It's the Bears.
We'll see if he becomes coach.
I mean, but
hypothetically, we could just do it regardless if he doesn't.
I mean, I'll put a Honda on it. Yeah.
You're saying, Smoke, I apologize. As you're saying that Mike McCarthy becomes coach, he's gonna win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl. Let's suss this out real quick.
He could win a Super Bowl.
All right. So if he doesn't,
he's done it before.
If he doesn't, one time. If he doesn't,
that's a time though.
That's
more than we've done since '85. You got it.
Did you put your hand?
I mean, I
had to find the camera. Sorry.
I just try to understand why he gets such the. I think he gets the bad rap because of what Dallas is. That's just me.
Dallas was the only guys. Dallas was the only team that brought him back.
No.
Do you not realize? Do you not realize the whole NFL? The whole NFL was out there and could have brought him in. So everyone knows everyone, and everybody was like, "I don't want him." Except the only owner who was way too meddlesome was like, "You know what? Because nobody wants your ass. You want to come here and fuck with me?" And that's the only job.
I get that. But,
okay, I'm just
but I'm saying it's other coaches out here that has.
I know. I'm about to fuck with you. I'm sorry for cursing.
Worse I'm about to mess with him.
So let me ask you this. So it's a young lady, right? And yes, this is this, right?
Like, look.
And nobody. It's a young lady, right? And nobody want her, right? Nobody in the world. She won a Super Bowl. But for 5 to 6 years, nobody wants her. Or 4 years, let's say 3 to 4 years. Nobody wants her. And you gonna be the one to be like, but I can make her the one. I'm just asking you, sir. Are you gonna be that gentleman?
Look, man.
He went 12. She went 12-5 a few years though.
Hey,
clearly, it couldn't be that bad.
Clearly, she
couldn't be that bad.
Something special.
Yes.
Few years.
He was in the playoffs.
But even saying that, nobody wanted him. The Dallas Cowboys were a 500.
Let's go play.
Literally, the Cowboys were a 500 team.
Wait, I would like
not a Mike Tomlin always above 5. They were literally with Jason Garrett 8-8.
Who needed a coach?
But Jason Garrett should have never. But Wade Phillips, the problem with that is Wade Phillips got screwed though. Like in all fairness, and that like historic,
that's a fact. That's a fact.
Like so, the problem was Jerry wanted because someone's old enough to remember Jason Garrett coming in when Troy was hurt and throwing it to Alvin Harper. Just throw it to Alvin. Like so. Yeah, it was one of those things where the owner wanted to prove himself right because he had hired Jason Garrett and he thought Jason Garrett was going to be him. Where most of us knew it was like, nah, dude, leave Wade Phillips alone. Don't do that. So he usurped Wade Phillips when he shouldn't have and gave Jason Garrett all that power when Jason Garrett wasn't that guy. Like, that's the thing where I don't trust Jerry. Like, outside of Bill Parcells, I don't trust nothing. No, I'm sorry, Jimmy Johnson. He should have never got rid of Jimmy Johnson and let Jimmy Johnson get 4 titles in a row.
Yeah,
that was the ego with I got to show that I know more than Jimmy because Barry Switzer's title belongs to Jimmy Johnson, and they probably would have won 4 straight. All right, but that alone is So anything that he does when it comes to coaching, man, like even with the stuff talking about the Dion may end up down there, man, I don't trust nothing. Nothing that Jerry does because Jerry's problem is he still wants to be a star, and it's like you a grown ass man and you rich. Let it go.
By the way, have y'all watched Landman?
No.
On Paramount Plus.
No.
It's a show on Paramount Plus. It's really good. Billy Bob Thornton. It's really good. But in last week's episode, Jerry Jones makes an appearance, and swear to God, Jerry Jones is probably gonna win an Emmy.
Whoa.
What
was he doing? Wait. What was the character he was playing as?
He was playing himself.
Okay.
Playing himself. All right. And he's talking to one of the main characters, John Hamm, who was in Mad Men. All right. Basically, John Hamm is working himself to death, and he's in the hospital. And Jerry Jones comes in and basically gives him the story of why family is so important that he needs to back off of work and do his family thing. Swear to God, Jerry Jones is about to win an Emmy. I'm just throwing it out there right now.
I saw a clip of Jerry yesterday, the day before, talking about the reason with the Cowboys was that he wanted to work with his family and how important it was.
Right.
But to me, like, that sounds good. You know what I'm saying? And I'll say this. I forget, was it Brian? Who's his son's name that's on there or whatever? The
Steven.
one, right?
Steven.
Thank you. Thank you. And Steven has given Jerry, because the whole not Baker Mayfield, what was the Johnny Manziel? When they was going to draft Johnny Manziel and like Steven stopped him Steven has stopped him from making silly decisions, but even with that, it's like, dude, I get it. I want to leave it for my kids, but you got to make sure it's running properly.
Well, they need to tell him he needs to go away.
Yeah,
that's what they need to do.
Let me turn this back to everything you've been saying, and I listened to your guys' reasoning, and it's endemic of Beardom and all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that we should have. We desperate. We're so desperate. We're gonna take a
You're right. I apologize, Smoke. That's on me.
Wait. But everybody talk about
it's not desperate, because my thing is this: with Ben Johnson, are we considering the fact that we don't have close to the fucking O-line that Detroit has? Not close. That stuff matters in the way he calls plays in Detroit. Yes, we don't have Jahmyr Gibbs. But I like you, DeAndre Swift, but they got rid of you in Detroit for that guy. And that guy won me fantasy, so I know for sure what he brings to the team. So, I mean, just being real, we got rid of David Montgomery to you all, and he turned David Montgomery into an absolute. But that's because of that.
But you got to get props. That's the flip. You just flip.
No. I do.
Great argument for Ben Johnson.
At the same time, we don't have what they have.
But you can change that.
But you can't have it both ways. Everybody talk, the Bears always go after first-time head coaches.
Who doesn't?
Okay.
I'm not
saying you're saying that. I'm saying that's what people out there are saying. The Bears always go after first-time head coaches. The Bears are cheap. Blah 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 blah.
I feel that Mike McCarthy has coached through adversity.
Clearly.
Chicago is in that.
He's been in Dallas all this time.
That's just me personally.
Really tough.
I mean, hey,
great resources, man.
Wait.
Yeah, but you got your boss spewing about you every week on the radio.
We talk about
the talent that he has.
Okay, but
they were arguing this year. They didn't go get no more talent this year.
That's just how crazy the talent has been.
Oh my! Only thing they lack was a running back. As far as when you're like, damn, you guys really should have kind of put some money in the definitely you should have went out and got King Henry. But dog, when you're talking about even if he's meddling and nobody wanted you, he should have sniffed a Super Bowl outside of the years that Dak was hurt. And I'm not a Dak guy. I don't believe in Dak out of the regular season. I don't trust that.
But why didn't he sniff a Super Bowl? Let's be real here. Last year, that was Dan Quinn's defense that Jordan Love was carving the fuck up.
I'm not, dog, this is still my point. When you're talking about, and you can say he's the head coach. So whatever you're doing, you know what I say? Stop doing it. And that's the thing, when people were talking about, and this is part of the reason getting all the way back to the Bears, where it was like, well, they should have got rid of Getsy. Do you know that Matt Eberflus can stop whatever the fuck Getsy is doing? His job is to say don't go for it or go for it. His job is to say call a timeout. His job is to say no. We're not running.
He doesn't need that job anymore.
So when we're pointing out where he's the head, he's not a coordinator. He's the head coach, and let whatever happen. My only thing is when you look at, and again, I'm not even just saying that because Glenn said it, but it's my problem with talking to people. His ceiling is partially the issue, but even on the side of the ball that he's supposed to be great on, he fell off in Green Bay, and it's not a knock on him. This is my point. It's not a knock on him. Jerry didn't allow it to happen, but we still don't know if he made it to modern times with what he was doing.
But he can go get himself a modern coordinator at this point. But he's going
to influence that coordinator. He got something to prove. If you don't think he got something to prove, because Jerry was in his offensive shit. He got something to prove.
But at least we know he knows a little something about offense. Right? I mean the man was a part of the development of Aaron Rodgers. Am I wrong about that?
I'm trying to think of who's the oldest offensive coordinator
seasons under this guy.
Trying to think. So does What was the offensive coordinator? What was
It's
the
him? Tom Clements was the quarterback coach.
No, that's not what I'm trying to go. That's not what I'm trying. What was the offensive guy that took over the 49ers off of Walsh? The head coach.
Holmes.
Yeah,
Mike Holmes.
So does George Seifert. So does George
Seifert. Seifert was a defensive guy.
He said the head coach. Did you say who's the head coach?
No, he said he took over the offense.
No, but no, you're still right.
Holmgren was the offensive coordinator.
My point being, if you haven't adapted to the modern day, what's going on now, and we even know now that it's changed, I just don't know, because he had, even if the receivers weren't the same, and I could be wrong. Let me say this too. I could be wrong. If the Bears end up with Mike McCarthy, I don't think it's the worst thing that can happen. Let me lead with that. I don't think, damn, this shit is fucked. That is not what I don't think it's the answer. I don't feel like it's the answer for what they want to do. And I don't feel like, and it's not Mike. Let me say this too. This is, I think, what I need to end it on. It's not Mike McCarthy's fault that we didn't get those answers while he was in Dallas. It's Jerry Jones' fault, because he, in some ways, benefited Mike with the talent, but he hamstrung him with being too controlling and meddlesome with what was going on in Dallas. All right. So but if you're asking me right now, if he's in my top 3, and I wanted to say this too, probably, and I love what Glenn said with the offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay. He's on there. Also, my other guy, I want to throw Todd Monken in there too. Georgia ain't been the same since he left.
You sound like the Bears. All these guys popping up with interviews.
No, but I'm gonna just say I would
Marcus
throw
Freeman next.
No, that's too early in on that.
You can't have that.
And if you love Marcus Freeman, you don't want this deal.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Like if you a Marcus Freeman guy, you don't want to put. But if looking at where it seemed like that Lamar Jackson had plateaued, and I mean that's a high plateau, where Todd Monken has opened, like, because I wasn't like, a lot of people was like, man, the Bears should bring in Greg Roman, and I was like, not really. And I'm talking about, and I know Glenn, I think Glenn may have been one of those guys. Were you one of those guys?
No, Glenn? Not at all.
Okay. So, but people were like, they should bring in Greg Roman for Justin. It was like, no, like that's not the move. But when you look at what Todd Monken has done with that offense with Baltimore, and also he's a salty ass mug. And I think that's what you kind of need. And again, this is just a preference. But he's a guy that I wouldn't be mad if Todd Monken was the guy. And again, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But he's one of those guys where I'm kind of like, you know what? So looking at offensive coordinators who seem like they may get it. And it's not an apples to apples comparison, because when you're talking about what you get, when you're talking about the phenomenal talent and player that Lamar Jackson is, and he's gone to a whole nother level, like he's better than he was last year. And some of this is Lamar Jackson on top of the coordinator, but Todd Monken is a guy that I would definitely seriously consider for the head coaching job for the Chicago Bears.
It's amazing how all these other non-offensive minded head coaches, whether be they former special teams coordinator, defensive coaches, seem to be able to attract and acquire talent at the offensive coordinator position. We've got DeMeco Ryans in Houston, kept slow for a couple of years. You've got Tomlinson over a 17-year period. You've got Harbaugh, John in Baltimore, excuse me. Buffalo, he's a defensive coordinator. He's gone through a couple of different offensive coordinators, and he's got one that was a really good offensive coordinator when Burrow won the championship in LSU. So it's not like it can't be done. This organization gets in its own way, and that is a problem. So to the point that, as I said earlier, retaining polls sends a message to me. It's going to be business as usual, and business as usual for the past 30 plus years has been bullshit unless they've gotten lucky. Now, I will say this, every 20 to 25 years, the Bears are in that little window where they're a championship quality type kind of team. Happened in the 40s, 60s, 80s, early 2000s. We're in that window now. And so even karma right now says we got a chance. So that's the only fucking thing I'm putting my hat on is karma, because nothing else is convincing me of anything. Our conversation tonight didn't convince me of anything other than we're in trouble.
Now,
I'm going to end on that.
I will say, Poles still being here plays a big factor in me saying McCarthy as the coach. I have a hard time believing a guy like Ben Johnson wants to be tied to Ryan Poles.
Exactly.
I have a hard time believing it.
I agree with you. Any good self-respecting,
so that's a big
future
reason.
head coach
like,
would.
If you ask me, my top three are all retreads.
But can I ask you, Smoke? Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question real quick? When you say that, so you're going off of Mike McCarthy being controlled, and you're saying you want to see him be controlled, and like that's to me to where, and again, I could be wrong. I would rather see someone who, through winning, may be able, just like Lovey did, you know what I'm saying, with Jerry Angelo. Like Lovey gained power on the side of Jerry Angelo by his winning, where it was Jerry Angelo, and then they had to give Lovey some leeway too. So for me, in saying that, I would rather bring in a guy who has more potential, that if he can succeed in that potential, can take power away from perhaps Ryan Poles than have to fall in line with Ryan Poles.
I don't
looking at what Mike McCarthy had to do with falling in line with Jerry Jones.
But I don't think it's the power of Poles. I don't think it's the power of Poles at all. I just think other guys don't want to be tied to him. If I come, let's say I'm Ben Johnson and I come to Chicago and we go from winning 5 games and we win 4 games next year, Ryan Poles is likely getting fired. Now, the next GM, I have to now make sure.
No, but you would probably have decision making. See, I disagree in this. You would probably have some type of inclusion in decision making. The problem would be, let's just say you went from 5 victories to 8 victories. How much can I say the type of offensive lineman that Ryan Poles draft? I don't want those guys. And I think that's, for me, why it's like Ryan Poles' track record doesn't necessarily lead to me wanting to trust him. And that's why, if I was someone who was a hot candidate, and your point too, him being on a hot seat factors in too. But if I think I'm sweet, I'm going to benefit him. But where's there going to be a delineation where I can, it's like, yo, that's him. And that's where I would feel also on the point of how is he going to benefit me when I don't necessarily know if he is good at his job. So that's why if I was someone, I would be hesitant to fuck with him, because I don't know if he can do what I need to do. And by the time they may realize they should be rocking with me, I may only have 1 year left. You know, it may be a situation was like, you was right, it was Ryan, but you on year 3. So you better figure it out now. And why am I going to give that time to a GM who I don't trust? And this is just my opinion.
And see, well, Jim just said it. This is why we're just fucking screwed as an organization. Because I'm in my head, like, listening to all that, like, oh, this just don't sound good. This don't sound good. It's just so many.
Man, don't let them jade your mind, man.
Hey,
don't let Aaron's influence
optimism. Look, listen.
Hope springs eternal.
At the end of the day, I'm gonna be cool. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever coach they hire,
you're right.
I'm probably gonna be cool with it unless they hire somebody that none of us even thought about.
Another trustman.
You know, like unless they do some wild shit like that. Mike Kafka, motherfucker, they name like some shit like that. You know, like
crazy.
But other than that, I think they're going to hire somebody that everyone will likely be like, okay, I can see it. You know, of course, I really like the Brian Flores, because one thing
never gonna happen.
I know, but as one thing y'all know about me, I'm all about personality.
Right. That's why it's not gonna happen.
And then I know, and that's why I know it. That's why I didn't even say him, because that's just something they did that, I might pass out. Like, who's running this shit now? Because that's far from what they would do. but I'm a personality guy, like, and that's something I feel we've always lacked. I know saying Mike McCarthy definitely contradicts all
Is
that.
he a personality guy? Yeah, I'm like,
He's not.
that's your definition of personality.
I don't even want to say who I really want to say because I might kick me
No,
off.
say that. No, say that.
But
say that. No,
Pete
say
Carroll,
that. No,
it's a safe space.
Pete Carroll is a guy with personality. If he just wasn't old as hell, I would be screaming.
That's my own, and I hate to be an ageist.
Yeah.
That's the only thing against Pete Carroll.
That's how we started this podcast being ageist. What are you talking about?
I'm with you. Like,
but
in all fairness,
really,
my A to B guy, he could be, but again, but see, the problem is, like, when are we gonna swing? Like, getting all the way back, and I'll stop talking after this too. Something Glenn mentioned early. Dave Wannstedt was the only, and I guess maybe some people will say Matt Nagy, but Matt Nagy is BS because at that point we still didn't know if Andy Reid was really running the plays, and Andy Reid allegedly took back play call. So you can't really say that. And I guess even if you're talking about defensively, I know, but
officially he only called plays for like 6 games that season.
I'm not, but you know what people do is you in the business, you know how people sit there, massage it, and make it seem like, man, it wasn't like that. And even though when you look at Wani, and shout out to Wani, you still had a defensive head coach when you're talking about Jimmy Johnson. But still, point being, Dave Wannstedt, and I know people are like, what was the hottest coaching candidate the Bears have ever hired? Where it was like that guy could have got any job at that moment.
That's a
basically fact. And that's what we're basically saying. Like, I'd rather the Bears mess up. And that's the problem. I have no problem if they hire Ben Johnson and he fall on his face. I'm not gonna be like, man, they messed up again. I'm like, I would have did it. Like, and that's the problem that some people have with revisionist history, where they want to act like, man, I would have never did it. You said it was cool when it was popping or whatever, right? Just own it. So if they get the hottest guy and he's not a leader of men, I've been like, you know what? It crossed my mind, but I would have done it. You know what I'm saying? And I think they need to probably do that rather than being safe, because being safe hasn't benefited them enough, and they've never really gotten a guy outside of Wani that was as hot as Ben Johnson, in my opinion.
All right, let's end it there, fellas.
Yes, so I'll co-sign. So again, keeping polls lets us all know it's gonna be business as usual, people.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
That check, let's just hope the check is so big, Glenn. The check is ridiculous. Like, to me, this is my thing, and I know it won't happen. Listen, you want to talk to ownership, because you know what? Kevin is going to do the stadium, and with polls is whatever. I know. Look, you're right. Even though that's a whole different, that's another discussion too. Like, that's a whole, when you talking about all the behind the scenes clatter, because and I don't know Kevin Warren, but I know I haven't heard enough positive things for someone who's had some of the accomplishments. It's always shicey from some people or whatever, but that's a discussion. It'd be nice to get more information. But point being, he's going to focus on the business side. And if you, and I'm just saying this hypothetically with Ben Johnson, you want to talk directly to me, that's what's up. You know what I'm saying? And if this is what it needs because you're that special, we'll do that. That's my problem with George saying the verticality and all this BS. It's no problem with him saying, you know what, there's exceptions for everything. And like, that's one of the biggest things, where when you look at what happened with the Raiders, right? Or when you look at perhaps what could happen with the Jaguars, where Khan kind of was like, man, Balky can be on the streets if it's necessary or whatever. Exactly. And you may not move off of him, and this is my problem. Balky should know it's okay if I say that, dog, I'm keeping you, right? So you can't be mad. You still won't get this check. You my guy, but you know what like, if I did right by you and you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you got to accept what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real friendship, or just being a genuine person, where it's like, you didn't accomplish the goal, accept it, right? So that's, I think, is the biggest thing. And that's where I know, to what Glenn is saying is business as usual. But to me, you should step outside of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone has led to nothing but failure consistently.
There we go. Good stuff, fellas. Let's go to picks real quick. Ken, what we do here, we pick 3 games against the spread. All right. Right now, of course, I'm in first place because that's just what I do around here.
Man, you caught me
this year.
Last week I went 2-1. We actually, I went 2-1. Smoke, you went 2-1. Glenn, you were 1-2.
I need a 3-0 week to tie, right?
So let's see. We're currently, I am 27-15-3. Smoke 25-18-2, and Glenn 21-20-1. So
still not bad. I mean, all things considered.
Yeah. So Glenn, you go ahead and you give us your picks. Ken, if you want to go to NFL Vegas Insiders, you can see.
Thank you. Let me know when I'm
sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Commanders +9 against the Detroit Lions. Hear me roar. I'm going to take the Ravens -1 against the Bills. And if you know the college line off the top of your head,
I've got Caesar's got I've got a couple. Caesar's got it at 8 right now.
For Texas and Notre Dame.
Ohio State.
Notre Dame,
Ohio State. Clearly, I wanted Texas to be there.
Oh, I had a bad beat in that game, by the way. I'll tell you guys about it.
So I'm going to take Ohio State -8. I think they'll win by 10 or more.
All right. Smoker, you got?
I'm taking that one as well. Ohio State. I'm gonna take Kansas City -8 versus Houston, and I'm gonna go.
Houston might shock the world.
It's tough.
Everybody's
Washington +9.
It's hard to ignore that number.
I know.
I know it's a sucker bet, but damn, it's so hard to ignore that number because Detroit's so beat up. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I'm.
But they're getting rest though.
But
that dude at quarterback, who my contemporaries, former coworkers,
Washington
seem to be
has
hating
to get
on
one
Jaden.
stop. Washington has to get one stop to make sure that spread don't because if they don't get a stop, because Detroit gonna stop them once, twice.
Probably.
All right. I'm gonna go. I'm going to opposite of you guys. I'm going Notre Dame +8.
Such a Midwestern guy.
I'm in the wrong week for
divisional round.
Yeah, I'm in the wild card round.
This is Vegas Insider, right?
Yeah.
So it's +8 with Indy because I see 9.5 right now.
So we go off Caesars. The Caesars.
I got you. I see it now. All right. Thank you.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Bills +1.
What? You hating on Lamar?
No, I don't. I got love for Lamar. That's 1 point, man.
Check your black card.
Check your black card, basically.
Check your black card, man.
And
you just got de-invited. You just got de-invited for the picnic,
from the barbecue.
Man.
From the barbecue, I'm out.
From the barbecue, you just got de-invited.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Chiefs -8.
Oh. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Chiefs -8.
Always shout out Baby Goat. Had a lengthy debate with Josh Rott, disrespected him today on text threads, just talking real reckless. Because I said if he win three, you gotta you sooner or later that baby gotta come off that Baby Goat which I should have trademarked that shit 5 years ago. But I'm definitely going to go with, you know what? I want to go with the Texans in this, looking at the fact that the Chiefs have just been winning close games all year long, even though my fear would be the Chiefs defense will really be able. I'm going to go with the Texans and with that 8. I'm going to go with the Lions. What else we got here? So what's the line right now? Because I don't have the Ravens and the Bills. What's the Ravens and the Bills?
Ravens and the Bills is 1.
Bills 1.
Yeah, Ravens.
So it's a home game. So that's just.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a pick 'em.
That's
it's a
why
pick 'em.
I went college. That's why
I'm gonna go with the. You know what? I'm gonna go with the Ravens on.
You're invited to the barbecue. Thank you, Ken.
Because even though Josh is gonna win the MVP, if Lamar hadn't won it previously, I think it would probably. But I think it's just the old Jordan syndrome, Moran syndrome of if you've won it a couple times, they don't really want to give it to you. But I think when you look at, yes, thank you, Smoke. It's the fatigue. Also, it's just the hate. I think that the Ravens are going to be able to pull that one out. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. Man, what's the line on the Rams and the Eagles right now? Did anybody have that?
It's not up yet.
That ain't even.
That's why. So
not up yet.
That one, but I'll say this: I don't know what the line's going to be, but I may be leaning towards now the Rams with the fact that the passing game with the Eagles just has been sputtering. With college, I mean, I think ND is a team of destiny, and I hate saying this, and I don't mean to be a hater, but I'm being
destined to lose. I agree with you.
My problem is, and this goes for none of these teams should be here if we was playing the old rules that Nick Saban lived by.
Like Cam Newton.
I'm just saying, like it's now everybody and their mama gets to say, "Man, I made it to the playoffs," and they'd be like, "Dog, you wouldn't have won if you wouldn't even made it to the playoffs. It was just a 4-team playoff." So that's one of my biggest. But I'm just being a hater. I'm being an old curmudgeon with that. But I don't see what Michigan did to Ohio State, and just Riley Leonard can do all of the H-back Paul Hornung quarterback mess he want to try. It's not going to happen with that team. So I'm taking Ohio State. It'd be cool. It would be cool, and I've had problems with Indy for years, and I used to be a huge Lou Holtz Notre Dame fan, but they did some stuff that I didn't like.
That's how I was. I grew up a Notre Dame fan with
They let Charlie Weiss run and do whatever, and it was like, why is it okay? Anyway,
I grew up with Tony Rice and Chris Zorich,
right?
Those teams, so, and then the Ty Willingham thing threw me off.
Ty Willingham and they had Ty Willingham and Charlie Weiss had the same record after the same amount of years, and
they gave him an extension.
Man, but it's a difference. Yeah. But I'm gonna go with Ohio State. Ryan Day, who can't beat Michigan, and squandered the talent of premium Ohio State, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to win a national title. So that's kind of where I'm going at. Did I answer Did I do?
You got him. That's all the games really, outside of the
what else?
Playoff games.
Yeah, you making up for a whole season's worth of picks.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, thank you very much for joining us, man. We appreciate it, man. Always good to have you on.
I'll definitely be back, gentlemen. I appreciate great talk. Definitely informative. If you don't, not to say that I'm bringing anybody to this thing, but if you don't watch it, watch these cats. Also, just great cats too. And I know some people don't care about that, but that means a lot to me. Dealing with people that are genuine people. We can have disagreements in sports. This isn't the end of the world.
That's what makes it beautiful, man.
That's what makes it beautiful. But make sure you check out this show and follow these gentlemen. And these gentlemen just not on here in their regular lives professionally do a great job. So shout out to all of them, and I appreciate you guys for bringing me on.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
All
right. Hey, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Easy Smoke and the GM podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening. We greatly appreciate it. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube. Search HP53 Productions. Go to our YouTube page and you'll find the video link, so you can actually see what we look like on here. You can also catch us at hp53productions.com. There you'll find a link to our podcast and the Super Duper podcast hosted by Rob Griggs. Yo, Glenn.
Yep.
Please take us out.
Hey, man, it's like we always say here, easy smoking the gym. We ain't saying we right. We just don't think we're wrong.
We'll catch you next week.